All right. So, hello, hello. My name is Davon Reeves, and I am the CEO and founder of Vester, which is a crowdfunding platform for folks who are looking to invest in commercial real estate and also raise capital in commercial real estate. And so we launched in 2022 on July 11th, which is my late father's birthday. And Beyonce has a song called 7-Eleven. So if you don't know this by now, I'm a huge fan of Beyonce. And so, what way to celebrate by launching my company, Vester, on 7-Eleven? And to date, we have raised over $2.5 million, which led to two hotel acquisitions, one car wash development, and one fund. And in honor of Black Business Month, I have what we call our funders. So some folks call them sponsors, some folks call them issuers, but in the investor world, we call our sponsors and issuers funders. So we have our very own funder here, Dr. Valicia Dunbar, or as probably best known as Dr. V. And I'm sure she has some trivia like she always does, an icebreaker where she shares history, Black history about women and wealth. And we will talk about her project. She has a project that's on Vester. It is a co-working space in downtown Jacksonville. She has it right behind you. Right, that's her background with the flowers on it, on the mural, the flower mural. That's her building where she's raising capital for investor. So we'll definitely put the link in the chat so you can look into it. But this conversation today is talking about Black businesses in honor of Black Business Month. So, Dr. V, I'm going to pass the baton over to you.
Thank you, Davon. And so I love the conversation that you all are having about just connecting, investing, your first, raise with Vester or participating in a raise with Vester. So this is all very relevant and exciting stuff for National Black Business Month. It's also National Philanthropy Month, and today is also Women's Equality Day, correct?
So oh, and it's also Big Sisters Day too. I forgot to do my
and Big Sisters Day.
Any big sisters? Any older? The eldest daughter on the line. Anybody? Raise your hand.
I'm in the middle.
Oh goodness. Well, I'm the eldest daughter on my mom's side. So shout out to the eldest daughters. Hey Tiffany, shout out. Hey Doreen, we get our own day because I'm telling you, we like the second mama. So if anyone knows that, we know. So shout out to you all in happy eldest daughter day.
You know what? And I'll vouch for my sister too, because she had a heavy load to carry with being the oldest of seven.
Give her some love today, okay?
So thank you all again for being here. So yes, Davon, I do have a little bit of trivia today. And so what I have been doing for over the past year is really looking at historically what has happened to our wealth. And I started looking at it through the lens of Black women moguls before the Civil Rights era. So this would be before 1970, African-American women who created wealth despite all kinds of barriers, inequality, segregation, Jim Crow laws. Despite all of that, they were able to push through and create significant wealth. So to start our conversation, I just want you all to pick one of these women who you think had the most wealth out of the four. The series has 24. These four were at the top of the food chain here. And so when you do that, put it in a chat, because I want you to, once we start to reveal who these women are, to kind of see where you thought it, where you landed. So Mary Ellen Pleasant is the far on the left with their names were at the bottom. Sarah Rector is beside her, Madam C.J. Walker, and then Annie Turnbull Malone is the other one. Everybody posted, Davon. So again, I'm Dr. V. I am, one of the newest investors on uh, Vestor on Davon's platform. I'm also developing the New Lavilla project. Since getting into this investment development world, I've had a 360 turnaround around how wealth is actually generated. And I wanted to understand it again through the lens of history. So my work at the New Lavilla, my hope is that that will become the model for what I am going to call wealthpreneurship. How do we build wealth through entrepreneurship? So this right here is the blueprint that I'm going to talk through. I just wanted to put that up front so you all can start to visualize what legacy um, and the wealth gap, how we can close the wealth gap through
Oh,
legacy, through
oh wait, I
entrepreneurship.
sorry to stop you.
Oh,
We had
sorry.
some folks putting their votes in. I don't know if you saw it in the chat. So it
Oh,
was Madam C. So we have, let's see, we have
is that right?
1, 2, 3 for Madam CJ. No, 4, 5 for Madam CJ Walker. And then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Madam CJ Walker. And then for 1, 2, 3 for Sarah Rector.
So 5 for Walker, 3 for Rector. What about the other 2 ladies?
They weren't mentioned. They didn't make the cut.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll find out. And so the lady that you're looking at now was not in the 4, but this is Sarah Spencer Washington, whose net worth when she passed away was about 3 million. Her businesses were located in New Jersey, and she was part of the APEX empire. She owned a 9-hole golf course that is still in Atlantic City, New Jersey. She owned a hotel and resort, as well as her own farm that provided food for the resort. So this woman, I'm just totally amazed by her because she was a hotel owner, and that's Davon's thing. And my property was also owned by a female hotel owner. So Sarah Rector is a person that you should absolutely know from Atlantic City, New Jersey. And so the wealth blueprint,
Wait,
I put
Sarah
that by
Rector or
her,
Sarah Spencer
Sarah,
Washington?
Sarah Spencer Washington.
Okay.
And what happened to her wealth? She didn't have any children. So her wealth went to her niece, and her niece, through marriage, lost the fortune. So, well, through marriage and then divorce, lost her fortune. And so the only trace of Sarah Spencer Washington that is left is still that golf course, but it's not owned by her or her family or anyone. It's outside of their estate. And so we'll talk about what happened there and the other lessons learned from these stories about these amazing women. And so the blueprint for wealth starts with personal wealth, expanding that into family wealth, and then expanding and scaling that into community wealth. That's how empires are built. And so what we're going to, my slides, okay. So I'm going to assume that everybody, has heard or has received tons of advice around, how do we create wealth and how do we sustain wealth? But what we're going to do here is look at the evidence. And that's one thing that I was very concerned about because I work with so many women entrepreneurs. 90% of the people I work with are women entrepreneurs. I also work with men, but if you're looking at the largest population of new entrepreneurs, it's African American women entrepreneurs. And so this, to me, made sense for the people that I'm mostly in contact with. I want to speak the truth. And so by speaking the truth, you have to learn and look at the evidence that's there. So for those of you who did not vote for Annie Turnbow Malone, she is the wealthiest of all of them. When she passed away, her estate was worth $300 million, equivalent to today's money approximately. And she is responsible for the Poro Empire. She had a college built called Poro College. She had international distribution centers around the world. She was involved in World War II. She was supplying, I can't remember exactly what she was supplying, but she was a scientist and a chemist. And she developed products that she also sold to during World War I. And so $300 million was her fortune at its peak. She is also, however, the person that trained Madam C.J. Walker. So FYI on that. So she's number one. Number two on the list
I
at
would say
$40 million.
I remember Miss Annie Malone from the Netflix movie on
Yes.
Madam C.J. Walker. That's how I found out about her.
She's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was the one that built the empire, and then Madam C.J. Walker, because she was married to her husband was in marketing, really understood marketing. Annie Turnbull Malone was very quiet, very shy, and she just put her head down and went to work. Her fortune was lost primarily through the IRS just coming for her and trying to take her wealth away. But she also didn't have descendants. She left her fortune to her nieces and nephews as well. And notice also that all of these women are from different areas in the country. So no matter where you are, there was an opportunity for these women to create wealth no matter what their circumstances were. So she was in St. Louis. Now we go to San Francisco on the California coast. Now, Mary Ellen Pleasant was something else. Her estate was worth 40 million. She was one of the funders of the John Brown's raise. So she was very heavily involved into abolitionist work. Most of her fortune she gave away, but she built her fortune listening to stockbrokers who were coming to her to her hotel. So she was a hotel owner that passed as the help, even though she owned the building and the business. And then she had restaurants and just kept investing based on what her tenants, what she was overhearing from her stockbroker tenants. She went there during the gold rush, of course, but came out a very wealthy woman who was worth about $40 million equivalent today. And I actually think this number is low. But what we've learned about Mary Ellen Pleasant, Annie Turnbull Malone, and the other women is that in addition to systemic barriers that kept them, from really growing their wealth and understanding how to protect their assets, we also understand that they gave a lot of it away. They gave so much of it away without realizing that um, what they needed to do was to build an endowment or build a trust so that their legacy was still intact, and that whatever organizations or groups they wanted to give their monies to, most of them were, again, churches. They built schools. They helped the homeless. They helped the needy, but they gave it away in cash rather than creating endowments and then letting those organizations earn income or revenue off of the interest gained on the endowments. And that's, if you're involved with investing, that is how this thing works. You don't give away the core asset. You use that core asset to build and leverage and increase your net worth. So she is San Francisco. So for those of you who voted for Madam C.J. Walker, she is the third most wealthiest in our list. Her net worth was at the time of her passing was $20 million. Now she did have a daughter who Alila Bundles is the descendant who's still alive, but her daughter primarily used up a lot of that wealth during the Harlem Renaissance and just living the life of excess. And so a lot of the income that she built through this Madam C.J. Walker empire dwindled down quite rapidly after her death. Her home in New York was abandoned, but eventually, I believe the city, or it's now a historic site, but again, is not owned by the family. So for her, again, systemic racism, redlining, but also poor choices, because none of these women had succession plans in place. They took high risks with their money, but didn't protect their money by organizing it within, again, these structures and systems to protect your wealth. And then just simply lost opportunities with, lack of ownership transfer. They would just give the wealth to their children who didn't really have training in entrepreneurship or business ownership. So that opportunity was lost to have a person who could step in as the president or the co-CEO to transfer those business operations to these descendants. And so the companies died. They lost opportunities to reinvest. And of course, long-term planning was inexistent, really. They were living in the moment for the most part, and that is how they lost their vision and their focus on how to sustain multi-generational wealth. So Madam C.J. Walker, $20 million. And then fourth, surprisingly, and I was surprised by this as well, Sarah Rector, at the peak of her, um, you know, income, $11 million is what she was worth at the time of her death. Now, I do believe that she lost a lot of her wealth because she was married multiple times. And so you'll see this pattern coming up over and over again of losing, because it was a patriarchal society for the most part. And so the husband primarily managed the assets. And so depending on your trust, the same thing with Sarah Rector's niece, she said she wanted to be a housewife. So she turned over everything to her husband. And so losing wealth through multiple marriages is also a trend. I thought that was a new thing, but apparently it's not. They were getting divorced even back then. And so she was the one who lived the longest, almost up to the 1970 civil rights period. She passed away in 1967. Her home was also, her estate was also left and abandoned and was acquired by a private company. And so she owned land, she owned businesses, she owned her husband's businesses. She had a lot of assets. But again, she didn't have insurance. She didn't have estate plans. She didn't have trust in place. And so her ability to grow and scale with intention and with strategy was left on the table. Now, I will say that with Sarah Rector, she's the only one that enjoyed her wealth to the fullest. She was driving around in was it a gold-plated Rolls Royce at one point? So she had oil money coming in just every single day. And so looking at how you can enjoy your life and spend down without any thought to where your next penny is coming from, she was an excellent example of what that looks like when you're just spending, enjoying life in the moment. And they said that she really loved to celebrate and enjoy her life. And so with her, she does have descendants left. When she moved from Taft, Oklahoma, she moved to Missouri, I believe, as well. And so she does have descendants there, because the last conversation that I saw in the research was that they were trying to bring back her home or get involved with restoring her home, but it was not owned by them. So it's an interesting story about that. So those are the four ladies that I wanted to highlight, even though we highlighted 20 in our section, in our research. But the patterns that kept coming up had to do with these four categories. Ownership of land, business, and assets, diversifying that portfolio, protecting those assets, and then growing and scaling those assets with strategic intention through smart investments and through scaling your businesses. And then leaving that legacy behind by training family members, reinvesting in their education as well. And then when it comes to the community, it's not about giving it away to the community. It's about reinvesting in the community with smart intentions as well. One of the things that I notice about a lot of the women that I work with is that they all have a disposition towards helping others. And so you'll see a lot of them start with, they'll start the business and then they'll start a nonprofit or a charity at the exact same time. I'm just curious to see how many people know people who have businesses who've done that. Just put that in the chat because I'm just curious. That trend, we have to think about why would we, out of the gate before our business has sustained itself or reached scalability, why would we out of the gate start to give that money away through nonprofit and charitable work? And so phasing nonprofit and charitable work in after you've achieved, the milestone that you want in terms of building a business, being an entrepreneur is what we should be, factoring in. So maybe after you start a business, 5 years in, you start to give away. But for some reason, that habit of starting it at the same time, I understand urgency and I understand caregiving, but it's going to be an Achilles heel in your business, and it shows up all the time when I'm looking at businesses like that. Let me see who knows someone who started a charity and a business at the exact same time. And so the long game is going back to that blueprint. Susan, yes, she has. So if you ask a lot of, small business owners, micro enterprises, or what have you, there's going to be that social service side of it. For me, what I did was just started a corporate social responsibility program, or having a corporate social responsibility policy within the company. So I give away every year so many hours of consulting and coaching to women, underserved women who can't afford to pay, $250 an hour, $300 an hour. So think about what that would look like. When we're starting businesses, would take us a long way towards achieving and sustaining our wealth when we start to look inward and not multiple, looking at multiple pots and multiple activities to be engaged in. It's just going to dilute our wealth. And so the personal wealth first, and then the family wealth, and then the community wealth are the lessons learned for the blueprint. Now, Amanda America Dixon was worth $9 million. So she was somewhere in there. She was below Sarah Rector. There's several women who were in the $6 million to $7 million range. Then there were a lot of millionaires. So again, before the civil rights movement, where has this wealth gone? This wealth has pretty much disappeared because these particular habits were not in place to protect their wealth. Personal wealth, family wealth, and community wealth. Okay, so what are the winning strategies that we can start to look at right now to get ourselves oriented towards building lasting wealth? As a business advisor, I'm in a lot of programs that talk about financial freedom, financial literacy, financial education, pay inequity, the lack of generational wealth. All of that stuff is on the table. And we've, again, taught those lessons over and over and over again. But the thing, again, the connecting of the dots to these women has everything to do with protection. Protection, protection, protection. And the second thing is looking at how to give and give wisely, how to manage what we give. They gave away everything for the most part to somebody else and had very little left when they passed away. And now we are seeing the impacts of that, where their financial legacies are just non-existent. I mean, and there's no workaround to say that. We can still see the Rockefellers' money. We can, I think in the movie at least, Madam C.J. Walker lived next door. Was it the Rockefeller guy or J.P. Morgan? I can't remember which one. One of the wealthy women in the research that I conducted, Belle DaCosta Green, was wealthy. She was J.P. Morgan's librarian. And she was the only one who straddled the fence in terms of, she was African American, but she was also passing for white. So that was the only one that did that. And JP Morgan knew it, but her value to him was extremely, extremely important. And the trust that he had in her was extremely important to him, that he invested in her. And so for her, being a multimillionaire, during her time living on Park Avenue in a penthouse, was really through the means of, JP Morgan and his family, and also passing, for white, I think. And so building multiple streams of income, starts with investing in the land, the assets, like having that diversified portfolio. For many of us who are entrepreneurs, we talk about diversifying revenue. This is about diversifying the portfolios. And so land was a recurring theme over and over again in this. The land, the tangible assets, the real estate, the property was bundled with that. And then also looking at investing in the real-time stock market that everyone was just talking about. Passing it forward, let me just talk about that. Again, we're doing the passing it forward thing incorrectly. By passing it forward, we shouldn't give it away. So I was talking to a client the other day who pledged $100,000 to her church. And so when she said that, I had to be careful around how I couched it, saying with the thought of, okay, that is something that I absolutely support you're doing. But what about you create a trust or an endowment or something that where the church can take that $100,000 is always there for them, but they pay their expenses, they pay their bills off of the interest earned, okay, and the dividends gained. That is how major institutions do this all over the country. The core investment is always protected and is always there. You earn off of the return on that initial investment. And so passing it forward for us, we have to redefine what that looks like because we're giving it. All of these women just gave so much away. And other than Poro College and Biddy Mason, who is on this slide, she was worth $6 million. A couple of them, they have their original houses that are still standing. But in terms of their names on buildings, like if you walk around and you see Carnegie libraries, that's not happening for these women. Their legacies are slowly, without someone digging it up like me, slowly disappearing. And that's unfortunate because their stories are so inspiring for the current generation. And I started doing this also to inspire us, with so much, kind of administrative erasuring going on. I wanted this to be an example of, what, no matter what happens, we have been winning and we have been winning for a very, very long time. So I'll pause for a second and see if anyone has any questions for me. Now, Biddy Mason was in Los Angeles and she owned most of downtown Los Angeles during her time. And she also had a daughter who married into wealth as well. And so what's left of her is a park in her name in downtown Los Angeles. It's the Biddy Mason Park. But that is it. Any thoughts or questions or comments so far? Let's see here.
Very informative. You have my full attention. Love it.
Awesome. So think about, the lessons that you're going to start to implement. And I will say that my background, I worked for nonprofits for quite a bit. And so I used to be a grant writer, writing grants to bring in tons of money for elder affairs agencies, youth agencies, and all of that. And one of the things that I saw a lot was these huge foundations, family foundations, where families are leaving their entire estate and putting it into a community foundation to manage the funds and then give away that money, at periods throughout the year. How many of you all are familiar with community foundations and how those work? Okay, Clint. Okay, good. That is the model that we should be using to build wealth in our businesses. Again, it's personal, family, community, all around 360. Okay, and it's a continuous cycle so that when you start to think about generational wealth, that takes care of it. You take your personal wealth, you manage it well, you allow that to grow and reinvest in your family and allow your family to then grow their own wealth. And then the family allows other families and the larger community to grow wealth through investments, endowments, trusts. And the cycle then can continue upon itself with that initial seed that was planted. That seed that was planted cannot be extinguished. It has to continue to grow. And that's what we're missing. That's the connecting part. That's the blueprint. Okay. So think about what that could look like. So I want you all to think about, if you started to build out what legacy and generational wealth could look like for, let's start with you, starting with you, then your family, then your community. What could that look like if you started with you? So the 3 questions are the assets, and then the pairing of that with protection. Those 2 cannot be separated from each other. The assets and then the protection of the assets. You have to build that first. You have to get momentum going with the return on the dividends, the earnings that are coming in from that original investment, and then looking at how you can now invest those earnings into the community. It's the same dollar, you're just multiplying that dollar. Then you're going to start to look at your family. I was looking at a program yesterday where, and Davon, you've mentioned this as well, where there's different communities have their different types of business models. So for hotels, that community, for supermarkets or 7-Eleven chains, there are different communities and groups of people that have turned those into legacy businesses. And so when they start that one business, and I think the example was the Donut King that she gave, but when he started that one business, what he did was he didn't just say, this is my business, I'm going to build this business, and it's just my business alone. He built the business, and then he started teaching the next community member how to start, scale, and grow that successful business. That was the blueprint for reinvesting in their community. It's not that I own this one business. It's how can we build out eventually 40 businesses independently owned by different families in this community. When you think about, and she was asking a question, so, for African American communities, we have a lot of food and culture. And so when we look at any restaurant, let's just say it's a barbecue restaurant, because those are the ones that are wealthiest over here. Barbecue restaurants. Has that family ever thought about teaching someone else how to run a successful business to launch the next barbecue restaurant? And then that family teaches the next family, and that family teaches the next family. So reinvesting in community is that last piece, and that is the huge gap when it comes to, okay, now that we've established comfort for ourselves, now that we've established comfort for our families, it doesn't end there. It has to be recycled in the community. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? And so think about what you have. Think about how you're going to protect it. Those go together. Okay. And then once you are protecting it and it's starting to generate dividends for you, how do you reinvest? It doesn't go in any other order.
Just a quick question. Hello?
Okay, so did someone have a question?
Yeah, Dr. V. Doreen had a question.
Yeah, I just had a quick
Yes, Doreen.
Can you just I guess elaborate just a little bit more on how you protect it? Just a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the critical piece. So when we look at insurance, estate planning, and trust. And so what I told my friend who pledged $100,000 to her church, and I said, that's going to be gone. You'll never see it again. And the church is going to just continue to ask over and over again for more and more money, which is how, you know, this has been happening over and over again, that you spend down the money and it's gone. So now you have to start all over again. The starting over again is our biggest Achilles heel. So the families of all of these women that are left have had to start all over again. You don't want your families to have to start over and over again. And so it starts with you building out those protections and then reinvesting in family, reinvesting in community. Just remember that order of things. You have to protect yourself first. You have to generate returning, ongoing, recurring revenue, income, whatever it is you choose to invest in for yourself. The formula is that the tap never turns off. It continues to appreciate. It continues to earn interest. It continues, sorry, that's my cat. It continues to gain revenue. There is no turning off of the tap. If you were to look at the Rockefeller Foundation, the JP Morgans, even now, if I were to look at, moving forward with a lot of the Microsoft wealth, the Gates and all of those people, the foundations are already in place. The investment in stocks and interests are already in place. I mean, the pattern is, repeatable and replicable. You can do this over and over again. Just do it for yourself. So insurance, estate planning, and trust is the protection side of it. And then what are you going to own and acquire? The land, the business, assets, whatever you want to grow and sustain, is the equity that you're building for yourself first. And then protect it, and then grow it, and then reinvest it to build out your legacy. Does that help, Doreen?
It does. Just another real quick question. So if you have like real estate, different assets, do you put it all in a trust? Do you put it, I guess that's where I'm kind of, you know what I mean? You split
Yeah.
that? Because I was told that you want to make sure that, because I guess if something were to happen, that the government doesn't, take, from the children and that type of thing. So I just want to make sure that I'm planning correctly.
So I would say get a attorney who understands your local
Okay.
laws
Yeah.
and your how the trusts work there.
Mhm.
My thought is just to make sure it's all diversified, because you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
So consult with the financial planners are there. They're kind of for me, I think of financial planners as just kind of immediately where do I need to put this money now? But for long-term sustainable advice, I would say you probably want to get the advice of an attorney. Does anybody have thoughts around what they've done that they like to share? And I'm still in that space as well, as learning how to build out the wills, the trusts, how to make all of them fall into alignment as well. So I'm with you, Doreen.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Does
If I
anyone
can
have
share,
yes.
one thing that has been kind of given a little bit of clarity to me using AI. I have a subscribed version of ChatGPT, and what I did, I found prompts that specialize with the legal brains in certain categories or whatever it is that I want to focus on, and I've loaded it into the project folders in the instruction part. So when you have a conversation, you're just speaking to that marketing specialist, or you're just speaking to that real estate agent. And what I've also did was on some of the state websites or whatever the source is that I'm trying to either do business or understand compliance or whatever, I've loaded that link or the PDF or creative documents to upload into it, so that way I can have sensible conversations. So now I'm at the point to where as I am kind of like organizing everything, and then I'm gonna take it to attorney, to really finalize and make sure everything's compliant for the area where I want to apply it. So maybe that might help, because I did see a lot of prompts on a lot of these free websites that basically was take care of that aspect of the law, trust, wills, and also criminal. It has a large category, so you can take your pick, but it's just a matter of giving your AI that proper knowledge base. I
So
hope that helps.
you're training your AI to be able to answer some of those questions for you.
Right, and I have it broken down into different projects, is different specialists that I speak to. So I have a staff actually.
And I think that's a reasonable approach, is to,
Yeah.
because ChatGPT is not going away. Um, it is being trained as we speak on all aspects of pulling and collating information. So I would say, just, I'm always looking for new information and researching as well. So just as another research option, I would definitely look into that. But you also want to make sure you're customizing it to your state, and that you educate yourself a little bit more deeply around the different options and the different assets that are there for you. I mean, I wish I had a family member who knew better. I don't have a family member to go to. This is all starting out, new for me within the past year to 2 years. And that's part of, again, that lost value. Those lost assets is also intellectual assets as well that we've lost, which is unfortunate, but it's up to you all on the call to start to change that for yourselves, and then for your families, and then for your communities. And when it comes to family, it's hard sometimes to have a family member that gets it or is in alignment. But if you start to have those bites, Clinton's all thumbs up. But if you start to have those bite-sized conversations, just those really small conversations, and making them regular conversations, it'll start to sink in slowly but surely around, maybe this is something I should think about as well, because Clint is thinking about it. Okay. And, they
If I
know
could
Clint,
add, oh, sorry.
no, and I was going to say, and Clint, they know you're going to leave, everything to them. So, make them nervous so that they can learn and understand before you, give them anything, how to protect it. They need to know that as well. And that's what happened to all of these ladies. Their children, their descendants did not know how to protect it, nor did they.
I'm
Yes, Tiffany.
trying to. I'm
Oh,
looking
I'm
at
sorry, Clint.
actually creating a little academy actually to kind of educate everyone and start slowly getting them on the same mindset. But it's hard. Half of them is halfway around the world, so they're kind of like facing different social environments. So they kind of give me this, oh, I don't have time, but yet still they're on Facebook, 8, 12, 14. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're keeping up with Facebook, you're all these changes that Zuckerberg is putting in place, and you're telling me that you're incompetent from doing this? Yeah, right. So I'm kind of like at a standoff right now, a little mini inner war. Sorry.
So have like a family chat. We have a family chat. And so just post in there one day, I just won $50 million in the lottery, and then you'll have their attention from there moving forward. So just post in there, and then all of them will have millions of questions. Like, what?
Yeah, I will focus on retaining the wealth. I think that was the biggest issue that just what happened with these ladies. And of course, this was their first time amassing the wealth, so they didn't know what to do with it, as far as retaining and teaching folks, teaching their heirs what to do with it, right? So
Absolutely.
definitely using, I mean, you can use Chat GPT as a tool and perhaps a guide, but I would definitely want to seek out, I wouldn't have it eliminate legal counsel. So work with someone who specializes with it, but at least it'll help the conversation when you meet with the lawyer. You're a little bit more, prepared, what questions to ask, where to start from. But I remember I was watching something on the Rockefeller family, and they were talking about, how I think she was like seventh generation or something like that. And they talked about, and I know another wealthy family, a very wealthy family, they're private, so I'm not gonna mention the name, but a very wealthy family that they kind of mimicked the Rockefeller. What they did, they had family meetings on a quarterly basis, right? And they keep, they let the family know what's going on with the business, and they have to vote. So everybody has to vote. and they use life insurance as a tool. So they use different tools and they keep it all in a trust. And pretty much everybody has a family job. But the point I'm trying to make is they keep the kids, they keep the generations involved with the family business. And from what it sounded like with the Rockefellers, that's how they were able to um keep it for so many generations. They had the family vote on it. I'm sure they had issues, but they had the family vote on it. They used life insurance as a tool, so that way the wealth can be, transferred down. So this is a good conversation, Dr. V, that definitely needs to be had, because I think I just saw a report, how I forgot the amount of Black millionaires, but there's so many more Black millionaires. And it's like, okay, well, what are we doing to keep it, from generations to come, right? My son, he's 6. I bring him, when I go to my rental properties and I walk him through it. He come with me to the hotel stuff. He's been with me at the closing, at just about every closing I had. He's been there. Of course, I looking back at it, he was always with me, and it was COVID. So, but looking back, he was a part of it. So he's asking
Smart.
questions, and now, he's like, "Oh, this is my house." He was like at 5, and he was like, "Mommy, is this my house?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, is my name on it?" And I'm like, "Why would you even think to say that?" At 5.
That's great. That is a great question.
At 5.
That's great.
So just bringing your kids around, and so that way y'all can understand, and that way they can understand, and that way they can have some attachment to it, so they won't sell it, right, or put it in your trust to where they won't be able to sell certain properties, right? So those are the type of questions that you can ask your attorney on what you can do to preserve or leave money, so that way they can keep the taxes paid, right? Because you could say, don't sell this house, but then they don't have any money to keep the taxes paid up. But anyway, so this is a good conversation to have, Dr. V, as far as, preserving wealth.
Tiffany, did you have a question? I saw your hand up earlier.
It wasn't a question. I was just going to add that one of the things that my husband and I are currently working on is documenting everything that we're doing. And that way it could be passed on, because, like many have mentioned so far, I don't have many family members who are like-minded, or even just have the understanding or the time or whatever it may be to kind of start doing some of the things that we've been doing for the past decade. And so, our children are very much involved, but of course our oldest is only 10. So they're still very young. So we're just working to document things that we can share with family, that we can share with friends. But just a way to, like, not like an ebook, but kind of like that. We've just been kind of documenting it. And our intention is for it to be like a book, almost like a Bible, on like different chapters about property ownership and estate planning and all of those things. So I was just going to share, that's something that we've been working on.
That is an excellent idea.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Thank you
I
for
love
sharing
it. And maybe think of it in terms of also creating a family game where you brand it as a family,
to make
monopoly.
it fun for the kids. Yeah, to make it fun for the kids. So because the kids may not, and I had to realize this. My son may not want to own a hotel, and I'm okay with that. But we have to understand that our kids may not go into the same path that we go. That they may not want to do real estate, or may not want to stay in the family business, or whatever your business is. But I think that's excellent by putting that blueprint together for them. So that way, if they do decide, or they have all this wealth, or they have these properties, at least they know what to do with it, and they're not left in the dark. So thank you for sharing that.
No
And
problem.
part of that protecting it also is, until they get a certain age, they can only draw down so much. It's in a trust for them to protect them as well. So how can you structure that to where they don't just inherit a ton of money and it's gone, and they're, back to the 9 to 5, 9 to 5, after you've built all of that to make sure that they were taken care of. So just, think about and I'm not certain, but I believe you can do that at any age.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great conversation.
I know we have about 9 minutes left. Do we have any? Well, are you finished, Dr. V?
Yeah, so these are my last two. These are the other ladies in the series. So you can go to the newlavilla.com /blog and read about the other ladies in the series. And, again, before the civil rights movement. The last one here was Eunice Johnson. Was she the first Black woman billionaire? I think she was the first billionaire before all the current billionaires.
Oh,
And
really?
so
I thought it
they
was.
lost.
I thought it was Sheila Johnson. I knew it wasn't Oprah. I thought it was Sheila Johnson.
I think it was Unit. Yeah. So you all check me on that. I didn't check my facts on that, but all of that, money that they had, they left it to what was left to their daughters. But even the real estate and all of that, the daughters had to sell off some of it to pay down some expenses. And of course, Josephine Baker is another one of my favorites. So I just wanted to include her here as well. So that's it. Thank you all so much. This was fun.
This was fun. Thank you, Dr. V. Woohoo!
You're
Yay!
very welcome.
We have a couple minutes left. I know there were a lot of conversations and some great comments and statements that were made throughout the presentation. But while we have a couple minutes left, did anyone have any questions or anything else they want to add?
I guess I have one. Do you have any recommendations on like what type of trust to create or how you would go about creating an endowment? Like how you would go about that?
Yeah, so again, it would be going back to your attorney and finding a attorney that deals in wills and trusts, so you can get better information than I can provide. Where are you located, Timothy?
I'm in Maryland.
In Maryland? Oh yeah, there are a ton of them running around there. And so start with start with looking for people that have already used them and can refer a good one to you. I would say that is look for someone that is referred to you or highly recommended, and then just have those conversations with them.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
I can't recommend any, and I wouldn't want to.
It was a lot of good. It was a lot of questions about the trust and wills. I probably should bring in a state attorney on because that was a lot of. I mean, it was good, but I'm just thinking. So I'll probably bring somebody on to get a lot of those questions answered. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Really good. Yeah.
I will say, so go to your community, so look into your community foundation. Every city has a community foundation. That's where when, everyday people with a bunch of money die, they leave it to their local community foundation so they can distribute those funds after their death. So just look at your community foundation first and see if they have a program where they train individuals, because they want your money when you pass away. They want to manage your funds for you. So they may have that program for you at the local level. And the United Way sometimes, depending on what your United Way's priorities are, may offer some free training as well. And they'll bring in a will and trust attorney.
Okay.
So start with your community foundation. And they work with endowments all the time as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. Let me so Dr. V, as we mentioned before, she's also a funder on Vestor. I'm putting the link in the chat. So she is converting an old office building in downtown Jacksonville and converting into a co-working space. So if you want to learn more about her deal or any deals on Vestor, I put the site in the chat. And yes, you will receive a replay for those who missed it. And yeah, thank you. I don't know if we had any other questions. We had a couple minutes left.
Yeah, and for our raise, we have weekly information sessions. So our next information session is going to be September 3rd at 7 p.m. With she's an attorney, former corporate attorney turned co-working owner, and so she just has a great story to tell.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Devon. As always.
Will we receive the information for that? Will you send out the information for that? I would love to attend.
Oh yeah, I can.
Okay, great.
Devon, you have the registration list up. Do you want me to send it to you? I can send it to you.
Yeah, if you send me the link, I can put it in a recap.
Let me see if I can. Okay, I'll send you the link to sign up. And I just posted it on Facebook at Facebook / the new La Villa. I think that's the handle.
I love the brand. I love how you're on brand.
Yes, I am designing merchandise already for the gift shop. So the La Villa was founded in 1866 by Buffalo soldiers. So that mural that is in the picture there, will more than likely be a tribute to the original founders, the Buffalo Soldiers. And so we'll have merchandise. I have the Buffalo Soldier patch on the sleeve, so I'm bringing that up pretty soon as well to help with the
And then the
raise.
other building is the courthouse, just to let you all know.
Yes, 1.1 million visitors a month come in and out of that courthouse. So we are in a prime location.
And she's looking to put some retail underneath there. So
coffee shop, gift shop. And then upstairs is the meeting space and 2-bedroom, 2-bath lodging unit. So it's a great mixed use property in our historic commercial district, African American commercial district. And we are, our vision is to bring back these historic buildings, restore them one building at a time, one city at a time. So yes, I'd love to see everyone on the call on the 3rd, which is Wednesday.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. V. I swear I love history just as much as you love history. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, I was just like I was just geeking out. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So did you all learn anything today?
Yes. What's your biggest takeaway?
For me, just understanding how to really protect it and build a legacy. So just those 3 steps right there just felt like that was everything that I was missing. And so you just put that in place right there. So now I feel a lot more sure, moving forward. Appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I really enjoyed the conversation or touching upon, we acquire these assets and build the wealth, but then what about maintaining it and sustaining it, So talking to family about keeping it within the generations, not a lot of conversations take place around that. A lot of conversations are about building that wealth, but how do we make sure that wealth don't get lost, amongst the generations? So that's a good conversation. I enjoyed that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Melina.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Have a great night, everyone. Good seeing you. That's right, Jessica. The blueprint for building wealth.
There we go. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.